The rocket crews have moved closer by necessity. They don't have the range of the cannons. So pretty much an equal number of soldiers on either side. So all of the redcoats falling back to our own camp for artillery protection. Right, how many cannons do we have? We have 2 and we have a mortar piece. We have 1 and we have a mortar piece. We have a mortar piece. My mouse is really sticky and so is my keyboard because I spelled cider all over it.
Yes, cider.
Shut up.
Cider.
Shut up. French or British?
Yes.
Hey, really? You got a flute?
Yeah, like I said.
Why didn't you bring a gun?
Forward, gentlemen, forward!
I'm reloading. Moving.
Wing the country!
So how do you not aim down the sights?
Oh, down, right now.
But it's not aiming down the sights, I just got a big circle.
Yeah, that's the sight.
That's it.
It's a musket.
I can't hit shit with it.
It's a musket.
It's
It's a musket.
He just follows around with the flute. Can you use a gun?
Forward, gentlemen!
We have 1 and we have a mortar piece. They don't have the range of the cannons. So pretty much an equal number of soldiers on either side. So all of the redcoats falling back to our own camp for artillery protection. Right, how many cannons do we have? We have 2 and we have a mortar piece. We have 1 and we have a mortar piece. We have a mortar piece. My mouse is really sticky and so is my keyboard because I spelled cider all over it.
Yes, cider.
Shut up.
Cider.
Shut up. French or British? Hey, really? You got a flute?
Yeah, like I said.
Why didn't you bring a gun?
Forward, gentlemen, forward!
I'm reloading. Moving.
Wing the country!
So how do you not aim down the sights?
Oh, down, right now.
But it's not aiming down the sights, I just got a big circle.
Yeah, that's the sight.
That's it.
It's a musket.
I can't hit shit with it.
It's a musket. It's a musket.
He just follows around with the flute. Can you use a gun? That'd be more useful right now.
Get your ass behind this barricade and unleash that gunpowder into the villain's presence.
Sarge, I don't want to die here, Sarge. I don't want to die here.
You're not going to die, sir. You have risk. We can die. Nothing to see.
Everyone get into character. This is a strict RP only server. Oh, thank you.
Is that the Soviet Wombo?
Oh, God.
Fix your upload schedule.
What the hell's wrong?
RP only server. Oh, thank you.
Is that
Nothing to see.
Everyone get into character. This is a strict RP only server. Oh, thank you.
is that the Soviet Wombo?
Oh, God.
Fix your upload schedule.
What the hell's wrong with you people?
This is the British Army, ladies and gentlemen. Come on, don't let us go. Come on, we are the army. Thank you. I love you. I love you too, Mussolini. Never thought I'd say that. Thank you. I once made love to Mussolini. No man shall lie with another man in his army. You disgusting perp. Put that away. Right, gentlemen, we are the bravest and most superior men on this battlefield. Listen to my sweet, posh, upper-class accent, and you can trust me when I say that I have this position merely because my father was rich. I possess no real abilities. Please, entrust me with your survival.
Well, I'm sold.
Right, here we are in the fridge. You can smell the rich.
やらねえって言ってんだ。冷めたかよこれ。まだ冷めねえってんなら本当にバキバキにして動けねえようにして連れてくぞ。サンジ
Take him yet. Fire! Go boys, to be proud, cut them down. Be a proud Britishman. Yo, oh dear, back of this, we're going to reform the other line. We've got too many bad boys. With me, it's Gary Loring left.
He got us killed! He got us killed!
This is the last stand, gentlemen. All that we stand for. The British Empire and all our colonies. King George, His Brilliant Majesty, who we all agree upon. Again, fire!
How many musicians do we have? For Christ's sake, bring guns with you.
We pretty good with 3 things. Fighting, big axes, kicking the shit out of some
He's
British.
in his element here. He's enjoying this.
We do not move, we do not falter, we do not carry from our God-given task.
Fuck down, faltering. Fuck you.
Arms, targets to your front. I can take over now, Lieutenant Bear, thank you very much. Please, excuse me, sir. My section. I've been excuse us, I say. I think my neck connection died.
It's not just you, dude. Ah, the laggy fields of Waterloo.
On the colours, boys, the final of glory into death. We shall prevail.
You sound doubtful about the prevailing part.
What are you doing, Mr. Waddle? You should be wearing a proper kilt.
I'm not from Scotland. I'm from a place where people dress properly. He's going in the loo. Really? Really, dude? Really? Right now? You have to go right now? It's pronounced arse, not ass. Yes, arse with an R on it. Arse. Yes, you've got it, man. You've got it. Sequel civilized colonies here. Oh, Christ!
Yeah, that sums up the whole class community. The fuck?
Hey, listen, you gotta leave me alone here. Come on, let's debate something. Come on.
He's the last man.
Come on, I'll switch sides. I'll set a time code. Come on. Praise Napoleon. Yeah, come on, get the hell out of here. I'm gonna need you to pretend you don't see me. Come on, leave me the hell alone. Get away from me. Stop looking at me. Stop looking at me. Leave me alone. You come anywhere closer, I'm gonna take out this pistol. I'm gonna shove it up your asshole. Okay, I promise. Don't leave me alone. Let's do it like gentlemen. Come on, let's have a sword fight. Come on. Come on.
Brilliant.
Come on, I'll tell you how it's done. Come on.
He's kicking off.
Dig me with me.
Everybody wants
Line up, line. You just stand there.
Oh.
Stick me! Stick me a surgeon who's big step!
Now he's never killed.
Surgeon Smith! Where's he gone? You must be okay.
Come on, gentlemen, get moving on the double time. Put a little chicken leg. Come on, I'll show you things to about parties. Get my fitness tips. $10.99 a month. Come on.
He's selling his fitness program.
Fellas.
I'm the king. You can't kill the king.
Hello.
I'm fidget spinner.
Okay.
Give them again! Charge! No sheep behind! Oh God!
Sir, we've got to speak the enemy, sir.
Stick me has been hit! I'm sorry, I brought you white. You bastard! I'll get you home safely, sir. I will take good care of her. Surgeon, send up people to do with this officer.
I can try.
Please! What are you doing? You're not qualified, are you?
It's the bayonet charge. So no one can now fire apart from officers with their pistols. It's now... I love that Kenneth has made a me. I'm going to attack Kenneth again. I'm just going to attack Kenneth again. You should watch the British line. Oh, they're all turning to the right as well, look at them.
Again, lads. England's removing. And fire.
They're pretty disciplined.
Ninja warrior.
Vive la France! Sorry, Sarge! That's why, Sarge. So basically the British are all drill lines and organisation. The French, it's just men screaming. Even if I could, it'd be French anyways, I wouldn't understand it. Shoot him! Come on, he just ran straight to our line! Are you being serious?
And straight down, turn around, and go.
Witness me. He just said witness me. That's great. Fuck you! Fuck you! Ah!
British are victorious.
Why is everyone from Boston? British, French, everyone's from fucking Boston.
It's on fire.
I hit one, sir. I hit one.
Well done. Where did you aim, sir?
At the enemy, sir.
Great. Well done, sir. Well done.
Oh, go Chitty. Oh.
You stab me. Listen up, boy. I'm gonna have it. If you think you can stab me, I'm gonna make it.
That was brilliant. rocket crews have moved closer by necessity. They don't have the range of the cannons. So pretty much an equal number of soldiers on either side. So all of the redcoats are falling back to our own camp for artillery protection. Right, how many cannons do we have? We have 2 and we have a mortar piece. We have 1 and we have a mortar piece. We have a mortar piece. My mouse is really sticky. Good evening, folks. Apologies for being late once again. I'm just going to be chilling out this evening and joining at least ZF Social in Mordau, which is the stabby run around with bows and arrows and stuff. Good evening, folks. Apologies for being late once again. I'm just going to be chilling out this evening and joining at least ZF Social in Mordau, which is the stabby run around with bows and arrows and stuff. Right, let me just unmute myself and say hi to him.
Sound resumed. Sound muted.
On second thoughts, let's do a solo stream this evening. Historically accurate, as you can see. What the fuck is this party? What on earth?
Right in the middle.
Trying to tuck in over here.
Every time I open a fresh pack of iced tea, the first thing you hear is this.
Now I want to pee.
Gentlemen.
Actually, you can see who's important in this group.
Oh, I'm literally covered behind you.
Yeah. Who's the lad with the wacky accent? Which of you has a wacky accent?
If you said sounded like a bellend, it would have been you, Jim.
Hey, I can embrace it, okay?
You embraced the bellend.
Garrett, bring in shot.
I don't even kill me.
Christ, Ginny, how long are we going to keep this up?
Hey! Oh no! Not even shit! Come on!
Right, so come on. Ah, what the hell?
Suck it!
Oh,
Oh.
closed it, the bastard.
We weren't welcome. Jenny, find you one. Someone find you one.
Doing.
So,
Right, yes.
to start the disrespect, however, please wait 1 second.
you doing?
There you go.
Ah!
What the fuck?
I didn't consent.
Come at me, Bundy! Come here, you bastard. Came out nowhere. That counts, Bundy, that counts.
Excuse me, I need to
Take the castle.
Charge! Ow! He's loving that shit. Ow! Ow! Ow!
Are you able summoning?
Oh.
Definitely sounds over.
God damn it.
Server browser, let's see. Yep, join up with me.
Right, joining.
You're in.
Get in there, I guess. Ah! Oh my leg. Oh my face. Darius, he's fighting Digby. Oh, so Digby lost his shield, he's running away.
Bow before me.
Ooh. Headbutt duel.
Yeah.
Ready?
Spear through it.
Oh,
Ah! Our weapons are so slow. Oh, shit, yes! No, you don't! Don't you dare! Holy shit, if he beats me with his fist, I'm done. That was so close. Okay. So it's Bundy versus social. My vote's on social.
what was that?
Yeah, okay. Alright, okay, I'm sorry. Go on, Edberg. Oh, no, Edberg! I lost my hand! How cool was that?
Versus you, I have a cleaver.
Oddly enough, my money's... He doesn't have a cleaver anymore. Oh! Oh, that looked painful.
Tis but a scratch.
Hold on, my game's crashed.
Ow! Cheat.
Wait, I'll take it
Yeah.
away.
Oh, fuck. Oh, Christ. I immediately regretted this decision. Oh, no. I surrendered. That's my weapon. Shit. Oh, it fell down. Give me. Oh, what?
I swear to God, it came when he joined us.
Jenny, heads up. Good catch. Well done. Digby. Duel.
Yeah, go on then.
Do you have dodge?
Oh,
yeah,
God.
of
I'm
course you
sucking.
do.
Oh,
Hold on. How about you?
fuck you.
Because of both shit.
No. Oh,
Oh, there I go.
No. Oh, Kyle. You interrupted the fucking duel.
Everyone, it's open hunting season for Kyle.
Where's Kyle? Kyle, motherfucker. Get in.
Get in.
Get in, Kyle. You have no other.
Oh, I thought there was
We
one
need
other
a
one.
dedicated server.
This game is characterized with let's play this. Oh.
Yeah, we're gonna play that more than we're gonna play deathmatch, aren't we?
Especially since more people can just join in and
Yeah. When I see Porro in the field, it's way better than just stabbing some random. Because I can stab Porro, and I hate Porro.
don't talk shit about my monk looking asshole.
Right.
Who's the monk's asshole?
I think I found
Holy. No, I don't get credit for that. Oh, fine, fuck all of you. So, what are we supposed to do for the red team? Kill the civilians? Oh, yeah, we kill them. I like this mate.
Actually, the objective is something like an armor.
Plays to our strengths as a clan.
Yeah, it does.
You
Fuck.
bastard! You bastard!
I'm taking this away until you learn to behave with
Give me my
it.
spear.
I will save you, Ginny. Come to the rescue. Oh, sorry.
Have you got a short spear and a shield?
No, you have, haven't you? No, I've got a sword, see? I've got a sword. But the horse is in the river. Is it stuck? He's stuck, look. He doesn't know what to do. Neither did he. Oh no, poor horse. No. Oh, what the hell? What on earth?
I hate people who do that. Just swing wildly.
That's the core of my strategy.
Soviet!
What have I done?
Firebomb.
Okay, let's go the other way.
What happened there? Job?
I'm not losing my points. Gives me more gold at the end. Bro, I'm not dumb.
Is that the sound of you lighting up another?
No.
Right.
We are in the presence of the Lord.
Are you high?
Who's high?
You.
No.
Right.
Not hit friendlies.
Yeah, it's very useful. Oh, wow.
What the fuck?
Jesus, was that you? Your head just came right off in front of me. That was so cool. I just grabbed everything I can off the floor.
I don't really bother most of the
No.
Right.
time. Not hit friendlies.
Yeah, it's very useful. Oh, wow.
What the fuck?
Jesus, was that you? Your head just came right off in front of me. That was so cool. I just grabbed everything I can off the floor.
I don't really bother most of the time unless there's like a bow lying around.
Oh. Round starting. Okay, he needs back up. I don't think I'm in a really good position to provide it. Oh, dude! Oh, Chromosaurus! Betrayed by one of my own subscribers! Yeah, not going very well. Can I climb up here? Do I have any shots from up here? No, this is too far. I'll never get a kill from here. Oh, what? Okay. Later today, I'll never get a blowjob from an extremely attractive brunette. Oh, lots of horses. Aha! I will have the distinction of slaying the enemy first. Stand back and watch how it's done.
Jenny, mind you?
I will stop him from escaping. Sorry. Damn. Oh god, we're losing the stable.
Nice and stable.
That's terrible. That's an awful joke. You should be ashamed. See you, Mammoth. Come here.
Oh, Soviet, you're playing with a red team!
Come get on the blue team. Christ, come here, one more. Go away, Zenith. Fuck off. All of you, go away. All of you.
Some of the maps are a bit
we're folding.
Oh, fuck, my axe, come back here. Oh, fuck.
He ran away with your axe.
Yeah, I was testing throwing the axe and it went into someone's foot and he ran off with it.
How do you not fall down?
I don't
one?
know.
I don't understand it.
Surprised it don't cause fires.
We can't possible. Then just a dagger. This is kind of. I'm gonna what? I just get killed by a horse.
Ah!
Can you defuse bear traps?
Doesn't have a fuse, you dingus. Really?
Fuck it hell.
So we've got a couple of your regulars that aren't complete fuckwits.
Oh, all three of them.
All three of them, yes.
Dingle, sir, I challenge you to an honourable duel.
Oh, honourable.
Honourable duel.
Stop kicking me, you motherfucker!
Who's ruined you?
Just
Random.
kept getting kicked by him.
I was regular.
Oh, is it regular?
Yeah. He's fine.
Fuck that shit. Si, you me?
I don't actually know how to do this, but yes.
Let's do it.
I can't, there's a fucking banana having a fucking raid behind you.
No, sure.
Kick at that game.
The hell no, who's that? Ow! God damn you, sir.
Ow. Why are we trying to tag? Ow. Ow. Quick, kick, fuck this.
No, honourable duel. Honourable duel. Honourable duel. No, damn you! God damn you! Si versus Principal.
I'm alright, Bundy.
Go, Si. Oh, your arm's off. Right, I will not die to chili in a frying pan. Fuck you. Oh, no! Ow, Si! Ow! Stop it! Fuck off, both of you. Hey, hey! God damn you! Cunts. Hey!
How did you kick my arm off?
I kicked his arm off.
Why are you kicking it out like that?
Sorry?
Why are you kicking it out like that? You look like you're ready to... I don't know.
Night on the town?
Fair enough, right? Not R, not bunch.
We are.
I will find the winner of this fight.
Yes!
Oh.
Gotcha.
Good fight, sir.
Yes, indeed. Si?
Let's go.
Give me. Oh, what? Kyle! Fucking Kyle.
From my angle, that was amazing.
Ah, that doesn't count.
It kind of does.
No, it doesn't. Fuck you.
Yeah,
No, it
kinda
really
does.
doesn't.
You gotta lose, so you can't possibly lose. You're fucking terrible.
Shut up. Not fighting social. Fuck that. Welcome to Fight Tingle.
Oh yeah, look at you, fat crusader.
I'm regular crusader.
Sorry,
Fucking
didn't
fat
see.
shaming me in the 14th century.
Ow! Oh, you son.
Ow, fuck off. Die. In the name of the Pope. Where's my shield? Oh, will you stop throwing kitchenware at me? Oh, I fucking hate you, man. Okay.
Alright, you wanna rematch, Bundy? Come on.
Ow. Ow.
Not looking good for you inside. Nope. Catch. Oh shit. Okay, hang on. You talk about it, Si. Duck. Ah. Oh, sit
Nice,
down.
nice.
Sit down, Si.
Nice.
No, I don't get credit for that. Oh, fine, fuck all of you. Sorry, what are we supposed to do for the red team? No, I don't get credit for that.
Fucking asshole.
Right.
Who's the monk's asshole?
I think I found
Holy. No, I don't get credit for that. Oh, fine, fuck all of you. Sorry,
Monk looking asshole.
right.
Who's the monk's asshole?
I think I found
Holy. No.
Hi, I'm John Green, and welcome to Season 4 of Crash Course Literature. Today we're transporting you to one of my favorite/least favorite dystopias, George Orwell's 1984. I feel like that eye is looking at me. The book starts like this. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. Winston Smith, his chin nuzzled into his breast in an effort to escape the vile wind, slipped quickly through the glass doors of Victory Mansions, though not quickly enough to prevent a swirl of gritty dust from entering along with him. Of course, it's not just a swirl of gritty dust traveling with Winston. Like everyone in 1984, he's never really alone. In Orwell's dystopian future 1984, which was published in 1949, the world is vile and gritty, and the clock strikes 13, and citizens are under near constant government surveillance. So you know what? Orwell did not correctly predict the future. Our clocks still stop at 12. Also, in the novel 1984, people routinely disappear and evidence of their existence is erased from public records, and that doesn't happen much yet. 1984 is an indictment of specific governments, but it's also a warning about the importance of free thought and speech. And in today's episode, we're going to discuss the historical context in which the novel was written, and also its use of oppressive language. I want to think about whether Orwell is arguing within the logic of the novel that the written word can significantly alter the society in which it is produced. And I mean that on at least two levels. Can the novel 1984 change the world in which we live? And are characters in that novel ultimately controlled by the language that they and their government use? Spoiler alert, we're all doomed. I'm just kidding. I mean, I hope I'm kidding. The truth is, so Winston and Julia meet secretly for months. They rent rooms from an antiques dealer named Mr. Charrington in the plebeian quarter of London. They confess their affair and anti-party beliefs to O'Brien, a member of the inner party who seems to be sympathetic to their cause, and they begin reading a book that is allegedly written by the underground resistance leader Emanuel Goldstein. They know that they'll be discovered and tortured and very probably executed. Their victories, and they do have some, come from tiny moments of consciousness and human connection and personal freedom. And these moments are tiny. For Winston, some of them include procuring a pen with a real nib, quote, simply because of a feeling that the beautiful creamy paper deserved to be written on. I mean, we're not talking about proper freedom of speech. We're talking about succumbing to the balminess of the April air to stroll through the labyrinth of London. Winston also purchases a glass paperweight containing coral, and all of this leads to a cool point. Despite the authoritarian nature of Ing INSOC, the perversion of socialism that dominates Oceania, moments of personal freedom like these are commonplace. There's even a word for them in Newspeak, the new language that the government is developing. Own life, it was called, meaning individualism and eccentricity. But of course, the line between experiencing an own life and engaging in political subversion is really thin. I mean, when Winston gives into his quote animal instinct to the simple, undifferentiated desire to have sex with Julia, their embrace had been a battle, the climax of victory. It was a blow struck against the party. It was a political act. There's no ambiguity there. Making your life yours, making your choices yours is political. And also, having your own thoughts is political. I mean, the party doesn't just suppress subversion through surveillance and arrest and torture and execution, those oldies but goodies from totalitarianism for dummies. In 1984, the government also suppresses individualism by limiting language. Just 4 pages into the book, an asterisk appears after the first mention of Newspeak. This asterisk interrupts the narrative flow, breaking any bond that the reader may be, or let's be honest, may not be, forming with Winston. And it entices the reader toward an appendix, which is narrated by a scholar living long after Winston. And the appendix explains that Newspeak had been devised to meet the ideological needs of INSOC, and that its vocabulary had been designed, quote, to make speech, and especially speech on any subject not ideologically neutral, as nearly as possible independent of consciousness. In other words, Newspeak seeks to make it nearly impossible to express, and maybe in turn even to think, revolutionary thoughts. Let's go to the thought bubble. So Newspeak has 3 main categories of vocabulary. The A vocabulary contains blunt words for daily functions like eating and working and sleeping. And these words don't have multiple meanings. The examples listed include hit, run, dog, tree, sugar, house, and field. The B vocabulary contains compound words that blend a noun and verb to express a limited number of political or ideological concepts, like good think means orthodoxy to party policy, crime think is its opposite. And the C vocabulary is scientific and technical jargon. It contains words accessible only to workers in a particular field, with the idea being that no individual will be able to synthesize knowledge from multiple fields. So people will be able to do their work, but not understand the context in which that work is happening. And that's one example of how, by trying to limit what people can say, the government is hoping to constrain what they can think. And an interesting feature of the appendix is that it explains that Winston's version of Newspeak was still, quote, a provisional one, and contained many superfluous words and archaic formulations which were due to be suppressed later. This foreshadows that language will become increasingly oppressive, which of course is bad news for Winston and his peers, but there is some good news for the rest of humanity, because you will notice that the appendix is written in standard English, and as many readers, including Thomas Pynchon and Margaret Atwood, have pointed out, this suggests that free thought and its expression will ultimately prevail, and that language will someday again be rich and complex and free. Thanks, Thought Bubble. So how do we get back to free language? Well, I'm a writer, and as such, I'm almost professionally obligated to believe in the power of language. Next week, we'll go into more detail about the complicated relationship between thoughts and language, but I think it's worth mentioning now that while we don't think entirely in words, language does help give form and expression to complex ideas within us. I mean, that's part of what books attempt to do, but it's also something we're all doing all day, because we think in language. It's one of the primary ways we communicate our feelings and experiences to other people, but it's also one of the primary ways we communicate that stuff within us. And I think in 1984, Orwell argues that the restriction of language is ultimately a form of restricting thought itself. It's encouraging that Newspeak may ultimately fail, but it does make me wonder, what thoughts can't I think because of the language that I've inherited? Next time we'll also address a question that should be on your mind since you're watching this video on something very like a telescreen, possibly while in a government-funded school where the government is deciding at least in part what you learn about. What can 1984 teach us about our current political context and our relationship to what many have called surveillance society? And in a world where so many of us volunteer so much of ourselves to the public sphere, is there value in a private life? Spoiler alert, I think there is, but we'll talk more about that next week. Thanks for watching. I'll see you then. Crash Course is filmed here in the Chad and Stacey and Nicole studio in Indianapolis, and it's made possible by your support at Patreon. Patreon is a voluntary subscription service where you can support Crash Course directly through a monthly donation to help us keep it free for everyone forever. You can also get great perks. Thank you to all of our patrons and to all of you for watching, and as we say in my hometown, don't forget to be awesome.
So it has been 2.5 years since I posted the trailer for my upcoming climate film, as many of you have noticed, and I have been working on it almost every day ever since. So it's really close, and thank you for your patience, and stay tuned. In the meantime, I do have something to share for you today. I generally reserve this channel for my own independent projects, but recently I've been working with the folks behind the Nobel Peace Prize, and not only are they wonderful to work with in terms of support and creative freedom, but they've allowed me to post a video here on my channel, so thank you to them, and here's the film. Imagine, for a moment, the unimaginable happened. A major city is hit by a nuclear weapon. Now, no number could account for all the devastation that would result. But we can put a number on the deaths. At least we can make an educated guess, based on our understanding of what nuclear blasts do to city structures and people. We'll assume the bomb is detonated in the air to maximize the radius of impact, as was done in Japan in 1945. But here we'll use an 800 kiloton warhead, a relatively large bomb in today's arsenals, and 100 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Upon detonation, a fireball as hot as the sun would expand to a radius of 800 meters. Those near the blast would be vaporized. And within a 2-kilometer
Endorse a climate change show on August the
Caution, vehicle drifting.
Kasi yan sa ilalim. Hindi yan lip spring, ano yan. Ano yun dyan, parang stabilizer dyan yung... Alam mo yun. Ang tawag ko?
Drifting. Drifting.
Kiramdam mo sa ako.
Keep a safe distance, please. Caution. Vehicle drifting.
Yung kotse natin, naman talaga may gumagalaw doon, marami kotse.
Yung linya ko. Bossing, wala naman kami sinasadya dyan.
Hindi na tayo magalaw.
Saan dyan, boss? Yung problema na ba yung makina?
Matipid na kain ito, mga 5 liters ano.
Pag-uwi?
Hindi, mga kumakain ito mga 7:1, 7:1. Ibig sabihin ng isa ka kuan, ang isa ka litro, mga 7 kilometers ang takbo nito. 2.2 to, pero ang power nito, patumbas yan sa... ano sabi mo? Ano ba yan?
Nakaiba yung linya ko. Ang ganda ng linya ko.
Oo nga, dapat ang ano ko, sabi. Ano ba yan?
Nakaiba yung linya ko. Ang ganda ng linya ko.
Oo nga, dapat ang ano ko, sabi.
Nakasignalight ako. Kita mo, nakasignalight ako.
Tabi mo natin, Chef. Maulan tayo, maano tayo.
O, anong gagawin natin dyan, boss? Pasignalight ako, papauwi ako.
Oo nga, bante ka, alam mo na pa ganyan.
Nakahinto ako dito, boss, oh. Nakahinto ako dito. Kinain mo linya ko, kitang-kita mo, oh. Sino mali sa ating dalawa? Dito ako nakatayo.
Malayo ng linya mo.
Ang layo ng linya mo, kitang-kita, oh.
Malayo ng kinain mo, kumain ka ng linya mo.
Nakasinalight ako, oh. Ano na umito sa'yo?
Ito rotugan, bossing paligoto, hindi na kagagang sakyan dito. Oo, hindi na tayo magalayo, mga traffic. Ito na lang natin yan.
Traffic, wala nga sasakyan, nakasinalight ako, umito ako dito. Kinain mo pa ako. Oh.
Ayusin na lang natin yan. Na-traffic tayo. Nasira pa motor mo? Ano mo na, para hindi tayo magkano. Tawag to eh. Alam mo, malaki yung sasakyan natin eh.
Alam ko nga, sir, malaki sasakyan nyo. Sir, dapat nasa tama tayo. Sir, nasa tama ako, oh. Nakasignalight ako, papunta ron, nakahinto ako rito. Kinain yung linya ko.
Ang isa ka litro, mga 7 kilometers ang takbo nito. 2.2 to, pero ang power nito, patumbas yan sa... Ano sabi mo? Yung... Ano ba yun?
Nakabalinya ko.
Sabi mo? Yung 2.2 to, pero power nito. Patumbas yan sa... Ano sabi mo? Yung... Ano ba yun?
Nakabalinya ko. Ang ganda ng linya ko.
Oo nga, dapat ano ko siya.
Nakasignalite ako. Kita mo, nakasignalite ako.
Tabit mo natin, Chip. Maulan tayo, maano tayo.
O, anong gagawin natin dyan, boss? Pasignalite ako, papawi ako.
Oo nga, banti ka. Alam mo na pa ganyan.
Nakahinto ako dito, boss, oh. Nakahinto ako dito. Kinain mo linya ko, kitang-kita mo, oh. Sino mali sa ating dalawa, dito ako nakatayo. Malayo ng linya mo. Malayo ng linya mo, kitang-kita, oh. Malayo ng kinain mo, kumain ka ng linya mo. Nakita ko, oh. Una umito sa'yo.
Ano sabi mo? Yung... Tumbas yan sa... Ano sabi mo? Yung... Ano ba yun?
Nakabay linya ko. Ang ganda ng linya ko.
Oo nga, dapat ano ko siya.
Nakasignalite ako, kita mo, nakasignalite ako.
Tabit mo natin, Chip. Maulan tayo, maano tayo.
O, anong gagawin natin dyan, boss? Pasignalite ako, papawi ako.
Oo nga, banti ka. Alam mo na pa ganyan.
Nakahinto ako dito, boss, oh. Nakahinto ako dito. Kinain mo linya ko, kitang-kita mo, oh. Sino mali sa ating dalawa, dito ako nakatayo. Malayo ng linya mo. Malayo ng linya mo, kitang-kita, oh. Malayo ng kinain mo, kumain ka ng linya mo. Nakita ko, una umito sa'yo. Turutugan, boss, yung paligoto, hindi na kagagang sakyan dito.
Oo, hindi na tayo makadalo, mga traffic. Kaya isa na lang natin yan.
Traffic, wala nga sasakyan, nakasignalite ako, umito ako dito. Kinain mo pa ako. Oh.
Ayusin na lang natin yan. Na-traffic tayo. Nasira pa motor mo? Ano na, para hindi tayo magkano. Tawag to eh. Alam mo, malaki yung sasakyan natin eh.
Alam ko nga, sir, malaki sasakyan mo. Sir, dapat nasa tama tayo. Sir, nasa tama ako, oh. Nakasignalite ako, papunta ron, nakahinto ako rito. Kinain yung linya ko. Yung linya ko.
Bossing, wala naman kami sinasadya dyan. Itabi mo na lang
Kailangan
muna
dali-
para tatabi kami.
Tingnan mo yung posisyon ng ano mo. Nasa puwe tayo eh.
Ano po ako ng...
Ay, di sige. Hindi ko yung part mo din.
Ha?
Yung part mo muna. Siyempre paliko ko eh. Anong kakainin yung sinasabi niya? Sige na, hayaan mo siya.
Hindi eh. Nasaan na siya?
Eh, maghanap daw siya ng bakit ang ano eh?
Pakanan siya. Siyempre nagkabaliko tayo sa... Siyempre magbubuelo ka. Kakain ka sa may ano.
Hindi, parang nandyan na siya nung nabangga mo eh.
Saan?
Yung pagliko mo siguro, nakabig pa rin siya.
Yung mabanti pa siguro siya.
Oo, saan ba siya papunta?
Didiretso siguro.
Kasi sana huminto muna siya.
Ha? Yun nga, yun nga, minsan sa may siksik pa siya sa may likod eh. Ay tinamaan siya dyan ng ano. Nasaan na siya? Ha?
Maghanap daw siya na, ayaw daw niya tanggalin. O, ayan, ayan. Dumiretso siya, hindi naman siya nakahinto eh. Pagkaliko mo eh, dapat siya yung ano, di dapat dumiko muna siya dun sa kanya. Ito yung balaw niya na.
Yung ano to?
Caution. Vehicle drifting.
Kita naman sa posisyon siya, hindi tanong bangga siya, kundi dumiretso pa siya. Kinain ka.
Keep a safe distance, please.
sir. Wala pulis dyan.
number.
Tawag muna tayo ng pulis yung ano, siksik ng siksik ka kasi.
So ganito, may cellphone kayo, 117.
Nasa linya ka nga, kinain ka, alam mo na magkukurbing tayo doon, siksik ka pa eh.
Tama na. 117, pulis na lang.
Makipagtalo ka pa, nasaan mga motor mo?
May cellphone ka, 117.
Alam mo nagkukurbing ng ganyan.
117, sa pulis.
Hindi, wag na tayo magtalo. Tawag na lang tayo ng pulis.
Tumawag na lang. Pulis.
Nabangga kami dito ng motor.
Caution. Vehicle drifting. Keep a safe distance, please.
Nasa linya.
Nabangga kami ng motor ni Papa. Eh di, wag ka na lang mag-ano pa, wag kang umalis. Sabi mo pa rescue ng
Saan ka dito? Saglit lang. Sa atin, nung lisensya nyo po. Lisensya na lang po.
Di ba mahirap doon kasi baka nahirapan siya umakyat. Bigla siyang ano, i-ano daw kung
Naman ang ano yun.
sa harap.
Saan tayo pwedeng parada?
Safe. Keep a
Yun, kasi yun sa ilalim.
caution. Vehicle.
Yung kotse natin, wala mo talaga. Yung toto, pero ang power nito, patumbas yan sa... Ano sabi mo? Yung... Ano sabi mo? Yung... Ano ba yun?
Nakaiba yung linya ko. Ang ganda ng linya ko.
Oo nga, dapat ang ano ko, sabi ko.
Nakasignalite ako, kita mo, nakasignalite ako.
Tabit mo natin, Chef. Maulan tayo, maano tayo.
O, anong gagawin natin dyan, boss? Pasignalit ako, papauwi ako.
Oo nga, bante ka, alam mo na pa ganyan.
Nakahinto ako dito, boss, oh. Nakahinto ako dito. Kinain mo linya ko, kitang-kita mo, oh. Sino mali sa ating dalawa, dito ako nakatayo.
Malayo ng linya mo.
Ang layo ng linya mo, kitang-kita, oh.
Malayo ng kinain mo, kumain ka ng linya mo.
Nakasignalite ako, oh. Ayaw na uminto sa'yo.
Turutugan, bossing paligoto, hindi na kagad ang sakyan dito. Oo, hindi na tayo makadalo, mga traffic. Kaya ito na lang natin yan.
Traffic, wala ka sasakyan, nakasignalite ako, uminto ako dito. Kinain mo pa ako. Oh.
Ayusin na lang natin yan. Na-traffic tayo. Nasira pa motor mo? Ano mo na, para hindi tayo mag-ano, tawag to eh. Alam mo, malaki yung sasakyan natin eh.
Alam ko nga, sir, malaki na sakyan mo, sir. Dapat nasa tama tayo, sir. Nasa tama ako, oh. Nakasignalite ako, papunta ron, nakahinto ako rito. Kinain yung linya ko. Yung linya ko. Bossing, wala naman kami sinasadya dyan. Itabi mo na lang muna para tatabi kami.
Tingnan mo yung posisyon ng ano mo, nasa puwet tayo eh.
Ano po ako ng ano? Ay, di sige. Hindi ko i-file ko din.
Ha?
I-file ko yung muna. Siyempre paliko kaya anong kakainin yung sinasabi niya? Sige na, hayaan mo siya.
Hindi eh. Nasaan na siya?
Eh, maghanap daw siya. Bakit ang ano eh?
pakanan siya. Siyempre, nagbabaliko tayo sa... Siyempre, magbubuilo ka, kakain ka sa may ano.
Hindi, parang nandyan na siya nung nabangga mo eh.
Saan?
Yung pagliko mo siguro, nakabig pa rin siya.
Lumabanti pa siguro siya.
Oo, saan ba siya papunta?
Didiretso siguro.
Kasi sana huminto muna siya.
Ha? Yun nga, yun nga, minsan sa may siksik pa siya sa may likod eh. Eh, tinamaan sa dyan ng ano. Nasaan na siya? Ha? Saan? Tulong din sa kanila yan. Pag inamin mo yan, na ikaw mongga, wala na naman ang question. Kaya tawag ang comprehensive. Pag kasalanan mo, babayaran nila yon. Pag wala kayo ng kasalanan, hindi sila magbayad yan. Hindi ba sabi ko sa kanya, bahala ng insurance kon.
Yun nga, tumaba ba yung ulo mo?
Ha?
Tumaba ba yung ulo mo? Bakit wala po siyang helmet? Nang-helmet ba siya?
Hindi, nagulat lang ako na tawag siya, natumba siya. Sana kung napakan siya. Kasi, di ba, nagkukurbing tayo, di diretso siya. Eh, siguro, nalang-alang na siya na, ha?
Hindi na daw siya maka-atras na nasagi.
Yun nga, nalang-alang na nga siya kasi dumikit siya.
Hindi na natin siya nadaanan eh. Tsaka malayo siya sa ano, malayo yung sasakyan. Sasakyan ba siya?
Hindi, alam ng investigador yan. Pag tingnan niya lang yan, makinig ka lang sa investigador yan.
Anong circuit sa settle, hindi mo complete.
Oo. Tawag to.
Kaya kasabi
Nagbubuhilo tayo. I-stop siya kaso lang Ayo.
please enable your mobile location service to help us nearby.
Tayo ng tawag to. Na kumakanan, kung dumiretso tayo na sa posisyon, ano bang yung bike na bangga. Eh, yun na bangga talaga ng motor ko. Pasigsag-sigsag siya. Ganyan. Yan sana ako. Ano siya? Dali natin dashcam. Kunin ko din.
Insurance niyo po ang gagamitin. Well, wala namang kayo lalabas na pera dito. Copy lang ng insurance policy. Oo. Ayun, sige, tara.
Ay, napadala mo na.
So, left ang bumagsak pero right ang
Yung nga nagtataka ko kung paano nangyari.
Kaya akala ko right ang bumagsak.
Kaya sabi ko,
Pwede nga masira to.
Tapos ganyan siya eh.
Okay.
Medyo nakadikit yung...
dito naman. Kasi kapag bumagsak ko siya, no choice.
Okay.
Kung binangga ko siya, sana pit-pit yung pasa kong palo. Nagugulat na ako, buti ka mo, nakapreno ako eh.
Natingin po na sa kanya. gaan ngayon.
Yun nga, maulan eh. Buti nga ko mo.
Wala ko kaming tigil sa dating ng tao. Puro BA po kami.
Ito, sir. Flashlight? Gusto mo pala? Gusto mo ka ako flashlight? May flashlight ako eh.
Ito yung picture niya eh. Baka kasi sabi mo, umatras ka. Parang dito na sa may gulong mo na. Parang dito ka na banda tumama.
Ito tumama nun, dito lang. Ayun o, yung tamang side mirror.
Hindi aabot ang side mirror mo dyan.
Abot mo yun lang, motor mo tumama. Side mirror mo, abot mo. Kunin mo yung, pilay ka ba? Oo, sir, masakit
Pilay
yung
siya ito.
Pero buti, ganyan, ano to? Matatanggal ng ano, ma'am. Oo, maano lang. Kaya ng ano to, kaya ng mga remover lang na ano.
Tama ba ng ano yun?
Hindi nag-ano, hindi lumalim. Malamang yung ano to, yung ano lang na ito. Side mirror yung tumama niya. Kaya ng ano to? Kaya ng turtle wax to. Walang lubog, pero marka.
Sabihin, hindi gano'n ang impact, diba?
Yes, oo. Hindi ano.
Oo, kasi nakahinto na siya.
Ano, gagawin pa ba report o pag-uusapan na lang?
Eh, ano siguro muna niya? Gusto mo ikunin mo yung ano, number mo, i-canvas mo muna yung sinasabi mo.
Yan, para makauwi na kayo.
Sabagay, mas maganda din sir pag may report eh, para in case ba? Para maano ko din sa insurance.
Pwede naman ganito eh. Pagka-insurance niyo po, ang gagamitin, well, wala naman kayo lalabas na pera dito. Copy lang yung insurance policy. Oo. Ayun, sige, parang.
Ayun, napadala mo na.
Radius, all buildings would likely be destroyed. And we'll assume that virtually no one survives inside this area, which, based on population density, would start the death tally at 120,000 people. As you move further away from ground zero, estimating deaths becomes more complicated. From as far away as 11 kilometers, the radiant heat from the blast would be strong enough to cause third-degree burns on exposed skin. And as you get closer to the blast, the heat becomes so intense that clothing, even skin, would ignite into flames. That said, most people in the city would be indoors or otherwise sheltered from direct exposure. But the very structures that offered this protection would then become a cause of injury, as debris would rip through buildings and rain down on city streets. As a rough estimate, we can assume that half the people between 2 and 11 kilometers from the blast are killed, from burns, debris, smoke, collapsed buildings, and radiation sickness, which translates roughly into an additional 500,000 people. Many of these deaths will occur days, even weeks after the attack. Radiation sickness takes about a week to cause death. much of the dust and ash produced from the explosion will be dangerously radioactive, especially if it originated near ground zero. And the distance the particles travel will depend on the wind and other factors. Now, since this simulation is of an airburst attack, it will produce significantly less radioactive fallout than ground attacks targeting missile silos or bunkers. So we'll go with a relatively small number of deaths outside the 11-kilometer range. If it were a surface blast, the fallout deaths could surpass all other deaths combined, but it's a very difficult number to predict. In theory, radiation deaths can be reduced if people can avoid exposure to the fallout, especially during the critical first few days. Fallout shelters were common during the Cold War, but people rarely build shelters today. And schools no longer practice nuclear war drills. We generally talk less about surviving a nuclear attack. And in a way, it's good that we're less afraid of the bomb now that the Cold War is over. When nations are less on edge, the risk of accidents is arguably reduced. But nuclear weapons remain one of the great threats to humanity. And today, we're entering a new era in nuclear weapon history. Long-standing nuclear arms treaties are being reassessed, and countries big and small face the prospect of new arms races. In part because technology is emerging that may give one side a considerable strategic advantage, notably hypersonic weapons. Current nuclear missiles travel around the Earth at high altitudes, making them visible by radar earlier in their flight. Now, some hypersonic vehicles travel close to the Earth, through the atmosphere, at least 5 times the speed of sound, giving defending countries far less time to react. And remember that some of the most perilous moments during the Cold War occurred when countries maneuvered to reduce their opponent's reaction time. And the less time countries have to react, the more likely an accident will occur, or a rash judgment. And then you have smaller nukes that blur the line between conventional and nuclear weapons, providing a more slippery path to nuclear escalation. Now, for ordinary citizens, nuclear weapon policy may seem like a complex, even intimidating topic. But leaders often consider public perceptions when making policy. In many countries, voter opinion is an important factor. Whether you believe nuclear weapons have made the world safer or more dangerous, both sides generally agree that the bomb brings an unparalleled risk, and that there are things we can do to reduce the risk, like minimizing how many countries get the bomb, or scaling back Cold War arsenals, or stabilizing technology races, or pledging to never be the first one to strike. Such ideas have often resulted in signed treaties, some of which have held for decades. Some are at risk of expiring, and some just need a final push to become activated. By being steadfast in these efforts, and not walking away from diplomatic achievements, we can continue the work of ensuring that this nightmare simulation never becomes a reality. If you'd like to learn about specific policies that could help reduce the risk of nuclear war, you can find links to resources in the video notes.
My name. What is my name?
Kung gano'n, tinamaan talaga siya sa puwet. Sa taga ko kapit yung sa right side na sira.
Left side.
Parang layo-layo.
Ay, ano yun? Pagbagsak na ano?
Natapal.
Oo, natuunan.